Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Being Human Now show. I'm your host, Jennifer Locksmith, and today we have Darragh Mason with us. Darragh Mason is an award-winning photographer, writer, filmmaker, and co-creator of the Sigil Engine. He is also the author of Songs of the Dark Man, and he hosts a YouTube channel and podcast called The Spirit Box, where he explores folklore, esoterica, and the mysteries of the spirit world. His work is available through Redux Pictures and Barcroft Media. You can also find him at his website, darraghmason.com. Darragh, welcome to the Being Human Now show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's very kind of you, and thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you here. Well, I have to say, I read your book before we came on. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for manifesting this into our reality for us. And it spoke to me personally. I know it expands your consciousness, makes you think, which is something the Dark Man does, which is something we're going to be talking about today, the archetype of the Dark Man.
Yeah.
In addition to Djinn, which you've done some research on, you've had experience with, and fairies.
hmm
So we're definitely gonna get into all that. But first, I want to let the audience know a little bit more about you. How did you get started on the esoteric path in your life?
Um, it's a really good question, and I imagine um most people have kind of a variant of the same answer of kind of like, well, I think I started then they look back and they go, I think I was always this way, and yeah, I used to think about that. Was there a particular thing or event? And the more I think about it, I think I just was always this way. I've just found vehicles to express it, that allowed it to kind of come out, and podcast, photography, and my book.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think the more and more I think about it, I think just I arrived like that. That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, me too. You're always a little bit weird. I know I was always weird.
Exactly.
I know that's how Gordon White opens his showroom soup. Were you a weird kid?
That's right. Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
great
We were
question.
good. Yeah. Totally. And it's one thing as well for any kind of like the weird kids out there, who might be listening to this, is that you know what's weird when you're a kid can turn into a superpower when you're older. You know.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I
Absolutely.
believe that too. What great advice. And I also want to say I love your podcast. I meant to say that in the beginning. I just started it. I just learned about it when I
Oh, cool.
decided to, and I've watched a few shows and I'm loving
Mm.
it. And I just want to say if anyone watching this, if you have been watching my show and you like it, you will love Darrah's show, The Spirit Box. Go check it out. It's a podcast and it's on YouTube. I highly recommend it. I know I'm going to be binging it for the next few weeks now that I've discovered it. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so one of the things you talk about are folklore and mythology.
Mhm.
Why do you think those are important for us?
Um, well, if we think about kind of linear history as it's presented in schools and university and kind of generally in the various different types of media we consume, it's presented kind of as a logical path of progression of human history. And I look at folklore and mythology as kind of our dream history. It's that kind of what what the subconscious obsessions of cultures were and how they kind of the themes manifest in these stories.
Yeah.
Um, so that's why I think it's hugely important. I also think that kind of mythopoetic structure
Hmm.
is far more capable of not necessarily explaining, because some things are ineffable and they really can't be explained while we're incarnated here. But the poetic language lends itself to kind of magical symbolism or mythopoetic symbolism, through which some of these forces, these archetypes, these royal spirits, whatever you want to call them, communicate to us. And that poetic symbolism, in whatever way it's expressed, it seems to be carried better in the vehicle of mythology and folklore.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
you know, so that's why I think it's important. It's also a window into how, some of our forebears understood the world and thought about the world.
Mhm.
Um, and we have a tendency as moderns to look back on our forebears and in some way infantilize them. We think that we might be intellectually superior because we have access to so much knowledge and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, we might have access to more knowledge, but we're not intellectually superior, like the. So there's a lot to learn from that. A lot to learn about kind of ways of being in the world. Um, and one of the things I talk about in the book is that it's actually really important that we revisit how we are with the world because it's clearly not working. Yeah, and I find that folklore um, has an ability to demonstrate a relationship with place, with landscape and people, and kind of the non-human intelligences in the landscape. Again, in a way that kind of our modern kind of empirical like lexicon just can't, you know, or can't now. But it's all still there, you know. Like weirdly because um, Irish as a language was pretty much decimated post the famine and kind of British colonialism in Ireland. In a way, it's kind of preserved the language in that state around kind of like the 1850s. Um, and so you reach back into that corpus of written work, some of the stuff that came later as well. You still have all those um, ideas about the land and fairies and magic and a totally different relationship with place, totally different understanding of like this is the landscape, but in the landscape around the landscape is the other scape, of the other world. um that's still in the language, but that's something that we have to kind of relearn. I've been in the process of kind of relearning my Irish for 3 and a bit years. And I went to school in the Gaeltacht, like in the Irish speaking language areas, for a number of years, and like essentially sat there baffled for a lot of the time. I'm like, "Oh, what are they saying?"
Yes.
Like, but I understand a lot of it, but I can't, the ability to speak fluently is I don't have that, but at least not yet. It's got a lot better. Like a lot of it's coming back, but how you see the landscape is so it's so different, because like place names in Ireland are essentially descriptive, you know,
Hmm. Yeah.
like like and that tells you about the place, right? It tells you about the relationship with the place. Like there's place in Donegal which is like called Knock on Firsta, and that's been kind of anglicized, like knock first or something like that, right? But
Hmm.
like knock, you'll see that everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Knock it means hill, right? Like
Okay.
knock na first or on first is like hill of the serpent or hill of the beast, or hill of the monster, like
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. And like there's a place in I think it's Connemara in Galway, and it's called um Moggerly on Dowell, right?
Hmm.
And in English, that's been translated into something like the devil's mother, right?
Oh,
Is what it's
wow.
been translated. That's not what it
Okay.
means in Irish.
Oh, okay.
No, no, it means the devil's testicles,
Oh my goodness.
right, in
Oh, I think
Gaelic.
that was
Yeah.
in your
So
book, wasn't it?
yeah, I speak about a couple of places like
Yeah.
that. When you kind of like, and this is the thing about the importance of like, what did the local people call those places, and
Hmm.
why? Because that's demonstrating the relationship that they had with the place.
Yeah.
So um, and that's what you learn from the local people who had that relationship with the place,
Yeah.
who saw that hill represents something very different to them. you know
Yeah.
it's not just a random hill. That's the hill of the serpent beast, you
Yeah.
know and there's some reason why it's called that.
Hmm.
So I mean,
That's,
that's a very, very long-winded, and
no,
I
I
think there's a
love
lot of
it.
tangential answers in there, but I think
Yeah.
that's why folklore is important.
Yeah.
because that's what those people then called that place, or
Yeah.
called that spirit, or talked about the nature of that fairy. It's that's that gives us that window into how people thought and perceived these things.
Yeah. It's like a lifeline,
Yeah,
time capsule. And I
yeah,
think,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah, and I think a lot of people, like, I really think and I'm feeling in order to go forward in a healthy way, we need to go back. And
yeah,
so thank goodness for these stories. It's like it's our ancestors reaching out, trying to remind us who we
mm,
are
yeah, yeah.
and what's important and what's dangerous and what's
Mm,
friendly and yeah, I think it's just so beautiful that,
mm,
you know, that we have that.
yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
a lot of people, I don't know if it's true, I know you're in England, but I think I've heard that in Ireland that the younger generations are trying to learn the
Oh yeah,
language
there's been a
again.
huge revival. I mean, it like when I was growing up, like Irish was Irish was perceived kind of like, it wasn't very cool. It was always kind of like, felt it forced, and kind of like when we were kids, like we looked to America for kind of what was interesting, what was cool, and while I'm sure there's still an aspect of that in Ireland, but the 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 popularity of the Irish language and the drive to speak Irish is extraordinary, absolutely
Yeah,
extraordinary. There's a huge growth in it, you know,
yeah,
um, um, which is fantastic, because it's really, it's 170 years since the kind of the decimation of the famine and kind of what it did to the country. Um,
yeah,
I mean, I don't think there's anywhere else in Europe that lost its language, you know, like so.
yeah,
Um, so to see that come back is extraordinary,
yeah,
and there's
absolutely.
just like lots of like you know social media like influencer kids who understand how to engage with audiences and are able to take Irish and do that with
Hmm.
audiences. Like, here's your word for the day, just use this word instead, and like so people are picking this up, and it's fantastic to see. It really is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I know a lot of younger Native American generations I've heard are
Mm,
also trying to learn
mm,
their old languages and bring the customs back. I mean,
mhm.
and I just think it's so important. Yeah, I'm happy, so thrilled to see that because
Mm,
I do think we
mm.
need to get back to that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, so thank you so much for that answer. That was
Mm,
amazing. But you also have experience and research with the Djinn. You've done quite a bit of traveling
mm.
in your life. And
Yeah,
that's something I haven't talked about on the show yet, or the Djinn. We've
yeah,
talked about fairies, we've talked about,
sure.
Sasquatch and aliens, ETs, but we haven't talked about the Djinn, and that's a fascinating topic. Um,
Yeah.
what are the Djinn?
So the jinn are within the Islamic world. I mean, they're pre-Islamic. They like it's from the kind of Arabian Peninsula across North Africa, but really wherever Islam has gone, the jinn as a concept have gone with them.
Hmm.
But they are one of the three sapient creatures that Allah is said to have created. So you've got angels created of light, um, human beings created of sounding clay, and jinn created of smokeless fire. Um, in terms of how they're perceived in the Islamic world, they're kind of one part ghost, one part fairy, one part demon. There's kind of like all of the kind of paranoia we have in the Western world for those kind of concepts
Hmm.
or experiences are very much kind of under the umbrella term of jinn. Um, so, but I say the key difference is um, it's a living tradition, right? It's a living belief. Like
Hmm.
people believe in the jinn, right?
Yeah,
So whereas here, it's like fairies. What are you talking about? Or demons aren't real and all that kind of stuff. I know there's some Christian sects who very much believe that. Like, but within the Islamic world, it's like no, the jinn are real, right?
yeah.
They're a real thing and not to be messed with. What have you? Um,
Are they feared or revered?
I mean,
There's,
broadly feared,
mhm.
but I've been to places where people are openly petitioning the jinn for help. So,
Yeah,
you
you've
know,
taken some beautiful pictures, by the way. I looked at
oh,
your
thank you.
photographs, and
Yeah,
yeah, the I guess some agreements are made with locks, which is a
yeah,
tradition, I think, in a lot of cultures, but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, they,
yeah. So lock and key magic
hmm
is very prevalent, right? Really, yeah. I mean, globally, like he's in a lot of places. You
yeah,
know, if you think about it, like the key opens doors, right? The
hmm
key removes the barrier of the door, right?
yeah,
The lock seals the deal. I mean, you get like teenagers and young couples
right.
all over Europe put little locks with their initials on a bridge. You know,
Yes,
which is kind of I don't know where that tradition has emerged from, but if you think about it, like a bridge is a crossroads. It's a liminal place. It's neither land or it's over water, but it's still land. It's in the
yeah,
air, usually. So it's like it's kind of a crossroads place, and this is where kind of like young couples kind of make that pact to each other with with
yeah,
a lock. You know.
yeah.
Um,
What kind of things do they petition the Djinn that you're aware of? That's
so where this place was or is rather is a place called Feroz Shokotla, which is one of the five cities in Delhi, and I think it's fifth century city, which was I think was called Firazabad originally. But the ruins there are kind of a pyramid structure, um, and they have what's called an Ashkatan pillar on top, which is far older. Right, and it comes from a very way earlier Indian empire. So the symbol you see on the flag of India, the chakram or the chakra, the wheel, right?
okay. Yeah.
That's from one of the Ashkatan pillars. On Indian passports, you'll see three lines with their backs to each other,
Hmm.
which is another state symbol. That's from the top of another Ashkatan pillar. So it's very much kind of a Hindu high culture in antiquity. Um, so they're amazing things. But someone had, I think it was the founder of for Azabad. I can't remember the emperor's name. He took one of these pillars, brought it all the way to Delhi, and put it on top of his building, right, his capital building. So that's still there, and it's got dozens of grottos under it, um, and it's said to be home to 10,000 jinn. And the
Oh,
king jinn of the place, the chief jinn rather, is said to live in the pillar. It's called Lat Wale Baba. Um, and when I was there, you you'll see kind of in the outside grottos, there's like dishes with souring milk and bread and passport photographs and bangles and locks on the kind of the gates of the grottos. The locks again be that symbol of the kind of the 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 agreement, right? The bangles, I don't know what the symbol of the bangles were, but given it's a female, traditionally seen as a female item,
yeah.
it may be specifically to do with things like wanting to conceive a child, that kind of thing. Certainly, I've seen that in other Islamic grottos where red threads are tied to the tombs of saints, and they are by childless women looking for help with conceiving, that kind of thing. Um, but the offers of bread and milk were really interesting because I was looking at them and I'm going like, this is exactly like Irish folklore. Because people leave butter and milk and bread out for the fairies on specific evenings, right?
Yeah.
So, but I hadn't kind of put those things together at that point.
Hmm.
Uh, but inside the grottos, um, I met this young family from Delhi, and through my fixer, he translated for me, and we spoke to the guys, and they were doing a 2 week long ritual of going to each of the grottos and making offerings and chanting offerings of sweets and kind of just like relighting the lamps there.
Hmm.
And I was asking, well, is it working? And he's like, yeah, we've nearly got what we were already looking. We're already halfway there at what we were looking to achieve. So elsewhere, there were these letters pinned to the walls, and again with their passport photographs, they'd pinned these passport photographs to the letters, and often we see the same letter repeated in different areas. So there was some sort of repetition in the ritual of petitioning the Djinn. But the letters could be for anything. They could be like win the lotto, or I want to go to Hollywood and be famous, or help my family with substance abuse, help us recover and all that kind of stuff. So like there were just all the kind of all the expressions of kind of human need you would expect to see. You know, yeah.
So they can be helpful and
Yeah,
friendly.
yeah. People petition. I wouldn't necessarily say friendly,
Okay.
but but certainly they can be petitioned. You
Okay.
know, a lot of the taboos that you have around fairy lore you have with Jinn,
Yeah, that's
like
something I want to
like
get into.
yeah, like
They've more in
like
common than they don't, it seems.
oh yes, yeah,
Mm.
definitely. You know,
Um,
um, so I mean things like the Jinn are said to travel in the wind,
hmm
and the fairies travel in the fairy wind. So like the Giha She, you know,
Yeah.
like Jinn can take kind of a possessive attraction to human beings,
hmm
and can really be quite disruptive in people's lives,
Yeah.
and be very jealous of any kind of human that the person interacts with. Well, like that's very close to
Yeah.
what like a Lananshi is. So she being the Irish word for fairy. So Banshee means woman fairy, literally, right? So
Okay.
right. So Lananshi is like lover fairy, right?
Oh, okay.
So this is that kind of obsessive spirit that has a kind of um a romantic or sexual interest in the human being. The Jinn
Yeah.
are exactly the same.
Now you said, I believe you mentioned, isn't there, there was one Djinn. I believe it's a queen. The queen Djinn has like 35,000 husbands or something.
Yes, that
Oh
is
my gosh.
Aisha Kandisha
Okay.
in Morocco.
Oh,
So
okay.
she's I think she's associated with water, but she's supposed to be from the waist up is this extraordinary beauty, and
hmm
from the kind of the waist down, I think she's got like either goat's legs or donkey's legs. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, there's an account of yeah, one time 35,000 men were said to be madly in love with Alicia Kandisha, and once a man sees her, then
hmm
that's it. He's done. He's going to spend the rest of his life obsessed by her. And yeah, that's and it's still very strong out there. I mean, like there's certain um there's certain kind of there's online stores, but I'm sure they're very much local as well, where they make gin rings, right? So you get like say a ring for a particular gin king,
hmm
that would be um utilized to strengthen one's connection with that king for whatever magical purpose, whatever magical authority that they have over
hmm
something, right? But women will get Aisha Kandisha rings, and that's for for powers of attraction over men, you know,
Okay.
that kind of thing, to
Okay.
emulate what she is said to be able to do.
Okay.
So, like, I mean, I don't know how common they are, but I have seen them online. Um,
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay. Well, you
and
mentioned
that
so
that
they are.
is, and that would be strictly like haram within Islam, right? So, but these things still exist. It will be seen
Yeah.
as absolutely forbidden, but these things still coexist. In a, I guess there'd be a tension there for sure, but they definitely coexist.
Oh my goodness.
Coexist is probably the wrong word. They exist in the same place. Wouldn't say coexist is probably the wrong impression.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Mhm.
So you've said they're made of smokeless fire, but you mentioned that she's kind of, there's two parts to her. I mean, are there specific forms they can take or,
Well,
um,
there's lots of different types,
oh, okay.
and they're said to present in different ways. But you very regularly get this kind of like therianthropic type figure, right? This half human, half animal type figure,
Okay.
or composite, lots of different types of animals. Like I mean, if you look at something um, like the Lesser Key of Solomon, and or Goethic magic, and you read the depictions of what the demons look like or said to look like, you'll see that it's the same type of thing. So that, I don't mean, that idea of these kind of composite beings is quite, quite a golden thread throughout the occult and the perception of what these spirits look like.
Yeah. And they can possess people, apparently.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Did you see this?
I saw. I photographed a man that I'm pretty sure was possessed.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What was that like?
It was awful. Yeah. I think it
Did
was
you
the
take the
only.
picture and run away?
I mean, it wasn't far off that. Yeah. Like, it's the only time I was scared to take a picture.
Oh wow.
Um, and I've photographed a lot of subject matter that people would generally find might have been challenging. Like I photographed like an Agori ritual of an Agori sadhu preparing uh, preparing a ritual and like drinking whiskey out of a human skull. Um,
That's intense.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But that like I don't want to paint a picture of myself being emotionally detached, but when I'm kind of shooting
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff, I'm not I'm not focused on oh my god, what I'm seeing is really intense. I'm focused on, I need to tell a story here. So how do I get my best set of images to tell that story? So I'm very much there as kind of a witness, and my role is to photograph and take the best images I can to tell that story. Um, so it kind of gives the camera in a way gives you a great into situations, but it
Hmm.
also kind of gives you a barrier as well.
Yeah, I totally hear that. I know what you
Yeah,
mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
but in this case, it wasn't. It felt like um, I didn't know what the photograph was going to cost me. You know,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
what happened if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I had a dream before I went
Hmm.
of like uh, being in that particular location, which was called Nizmuddin Ali Adarg, and it was right in the middle of Old Delhi. It's the tomb of the kind of preeminent Sufi saint of India, and it, it's a beautiful place. It's this little marble plaza with these dome tombs,
Hmm.
um, and so I went there to photograph these places that were associated with with Djinn, from a book by a famous Scottish author called William Dalrymple, called City of Jinns. Um, and at that point, it was kind of more of a travelogue with a bit of a kind of lean into kind of like this kind of spooky territory. But you know, I hadn't really kind of understood the subject at that time. Like if I wouldn't do that now. Basically, is what I'm saying. I got to understand it a little bit more. Or approach with which a lot more caution.
Yeah.
Um, and I think about 2 weeks before I went, I had this really quite vivid dream of being in that place, not really knowing it very well. And then
Well,
to my left, there was a figure with his back to me, had a white hat. And then I turned, and it turned at me, and his kind of face was decomposed, and like
oh God.
a kind of a snake went in one eye and out one eye and in the other, and said like, don't come here. And
So you win.
exactly, yeah. So it went. I mean, I at the time, again, I put it down to kind of, oh, this is just like travel anxiety, you know,
Yeah.
um, that kind of thing. Again, if that happened to me now, I'd be like, message understood. Like so I have a very different context for it now. But when I went there, and I was working with my fixer, who was talking to the kind of the lead Sufis there about kind of what I was trying to document. And I was pointed to an area, an enclosure where people who had evil spirit problems or jinn possessions were being held before they got to be seen for exorcism and treatment. And I look over there, and there's a guy in a white hat who's like eyeballing me and like really kind of like mouthing off. Like, he does not look happy.
Yeah.
And then my fixer's like, let's get the photograph and finish the story. And I'm like really hesitating to do it, and raised my camera, took a deep breath, and took the picture. And he just stopped and just like dead looked at the
Oh
camera.
my goodness.
And I believe that person was possessed. Yeah,
Yeah. Can
yeah,
people see this picture or is
yeah.
it
It's
on
on
your
my
website?
website. Yeah,
It's on your
yeah.
website? Okay.
The story
I'll have to go
City of
try to
Jinns.
find it.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Um, there was, I mean, I have all these questions. I want to make sure I'm, oh, where do they reside? There was a very interesting description in your book
Mount Quaff.
about where the
In,
Jinn reside on like a
yeah,
mountainside. It sounds very interesting.
yeah. A really interesting, quite beautiful story. But the idea is that they reside in the north, or in the North Pole. Um, there's this kind of old idea that the reason compasses work is because there's a giant lodestone, magnetic stone mountain, right, at the in the North Pole, right,
Interesting.
surrounded by four islands that have whirlpools around them. Um, and it's on kind of old maps, like the kind of the Mercier map. There's a
Mm,
detail kind of the North Pole that has this depiction. So within the Islamic world, they have the kind of the same idea, right?
hmm.
Or variation that this mountain is called Mount Quaf. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's an Islamic letter, but
Okay.
they're said to reside on these kind of emerald cities on the
Yeah.
slopes of the mountain, and it's the
I think it's like
reflection.
Chrysola or something, Chrysocolla. I
Yeah,
forget.
it's a green precious
Yeah.
stone
It's beautiful.
that that's what creates the Northern Lights. But that's where they're set to reside. And the rock, the great bird, the rock, is supposed to be there as well.
Interesting. Oh, that's
Mm,
so cool.
mm,
Um, and they're said to, well, they said that they inspire poetry in people, you've said.
correct. Yeah,
Whereas fairies inspire music, correct? I think.
correct. Yeah,
Okay.
music
Yeah.
and song. Yeah,
Um, and is there anything that weakens or repels them?
iron.
Hmm.
So that's the again consistent between fairies and Djinn. Iron is
Yeah.
said to repel them. I mean, there's a sanctioned Islamic healing practice called ruqya, and that's used to treat people with jinn possession. So there's some standard things of like Quranic verses being read over people, but ruqya is slightly kind of more involved, where they've got kind of procedures for diagnosing the type of jinn, um, dealing with the evil eye, dealing with sorcery, that kind of stuff. Um, and like things like using Quranic water, which would be for I guess from a Western perspective or Christian perspective, holy water,
Hmm.
um, um, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's interesting how there's these threads that go through all different cultures,
mm,
that are this
mm.
or that are the same. So
Yeah.
yeah. That kind of brings me to this. I really love this one story. I think I heard you talk about it. I don't think it was in your book. Um, I believe it was a Djinn figure that it was about the schism in heaven. So that, well-known story.
Mm.
Um, but there was a really kind of very interesting perspective that was taken. You were talking about a man, and I'm so sorry I forget his name. He was on a
Iblis.
mountainside and encountered the one, I believe it was the Djinn that refused to bow down.
Ah, yes, yes, yes.
Would you mind telling that story? Because I think
Yes.
that's important.
Who is it? I think it's Moses or Abraham from memory. And they meet Iblis, right? So Iblis is the jinn who refused to bow to Adam, right? And said, um, "I will beset your creation." To speaking to Allah, for on his straight path. So the paths to God, I will beset him on all sides. Um, he refused to bow. The paraphrasing the quote is like, because I'm better than him. It's like he is made of sounding clay and I'm made of fire, right? But if I remember correctly, it's either Moses of Abraham who meets him on the foothills of Mount Sinai, um, and asks him, you know, why would you not bow to Adam? And his response, and this aligns with some particular Sufi sects, which is the mystic wing of Islam.
Hmm.
Um, he said, because I love Allah so much, I could not bow to any other thing. right? So
Oh.
making him kind of the ultimate monotheist.
Hmm.
There's some kind of Christian thought around that like the devil or the opposer is willing to do this extraordinarily difficult job on behalf of God so that we can learn, so we can have that kind of experience of opposites and
Yeah.
so we can grow.
Yeah. Light and dark. I believe you call it the
Yeah.
dance of light and dark.
Mm.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to fairies now. We've got, yeah. What are fairies?
Yeah. Um,
You might call
well,
them, what are they? The Tuatha De Danann?
so the two of
Uh,
the Danann, yeah, the two of the Danann are the they're often called fairies, but they're kind of not quite really.
okay.
They can get conflated together, but essentially they're the pre-Christian gods, right?
Okay.
If you think of it that way, that's the kind of pantheon of gods who, incidentally, are said to have learned the crafts of metallurgy, sorcery, witchcraft, sciences in these four cities in the north, which is reminiscent of those four islands around the, the, the Lodestone Mountain in the
Mhm.
north and come
Interesting.
to Ireland. Um, and they are pretty much, if you can imagine, kind of like the Aesir and kind of Vanir of Norse mythology. They're very similar to that area. They represent similar things. Similar, they're the patrons of certain skills and what have you. Um, but they were kind of like the fairies are said to kind of sail away to the west, like the Tuatha and kind of faded into the hills and mountains and under the barrows. But the fairies have a similar origin myth um, to the Djinn, in the sense that they are said to have been the angels that lost the battle in heaven and they fell to earth. Some of them fell into hell, others fell just beneath the surface into the hills and barrows and became the fairies. So, I mean, I don't think that's what they are. I think that they are more kind of like other living intelligence that are non-corporeal. You know,
Yeah.
there's very interesting descriptions of them. There's um there's a book um by I can't remember his surname, but Reverend Kirk,
Okay.
called oh, what's it called? It's not the Hidden Kingdom. My memory's letting me down now. Um,
It'll come to you. I believe in you.
thank you. I should know this, but there's a really good book about that book called
Hmm.
Beneath the Hollow Hill. Let me just Google this because it'll
Yeah.
annoy me. Um,
It's gonna drive you nuts.
exactly.
And there's many different kinds as well. I think I'd
It's
heard you.
it's I think
Yeah.
it's like the invisible, the Secret Commonwealth. I think
Okay.
that's what it's
Oh,
called, right? And it's about the fairy in Scotland. Bum, 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 bum. Um, and he has a passage where he describes the fairy as being kind of like semi-corporeal, like their bodies are made of like almost physical, but like slightly kind of look like mist, right?
hmm.
Um, so yeah, there's some very interesting descriptions
It's
about their
funny.
nature and that as well.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
they're very real. All this is very real.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
actually, my people are from Sicily. They're from the Mediterranean. And
Ah,
just out of curiosity, I looked up, I wonder if there's any book on, fairy lore from Sicily. And in fact, there is.
yeah.
So I'm excited to, it's a
Mm.
very expensive book, but I think through Kindle it's a little bit more affordable. But
Yeah.
it's just interesting how through all the cultures they appear. So it's
Hmm.
just confirmation that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, you'll find an awful lot in there. There's a particular name for Sicilian witches. Um,
Strega,
it,
Benedante.
Donna del Fora,
Oh, okay.
right? So ladies from the outside, and who
Oh,
were
is that for fairies, you mean?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yep. They were called the witches were called that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, And you've said that.
No, fairies were called that. You're right, but they were deemed crossed over witches in some way. The
Oh,
language was a bit
interesting.
blurred. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mm,
Well, yeah, that's something we're going to get into in a bit with, because this all ties in, with everything we're talking about today. It's all related. What was I just going to say? Oh no, I lost it. Oh, as far as types of fairies, you said
mm,
there's many that would be like describing, like saying mammals or something, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about it, like you've got like in the UK alone, you've got things like brownies, we're kind of like house fairies that are kind of helpful little spirits. Then you've got um there's things like called red caps, right, which are kind of malignant things that would keep their caps bred by dipping in the blood of their victims, this kind of things. You got mythical beings. I mean, fairy, like Djinn, is very much kind of an umbrella term.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like anything otherworldly, kind of fairy. It kind of comes into that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's kind of many different types. There seems to be kind of a hierarchy. You
Yeah.
know,
And some are friendly and some are dangerous.
correct.
Yeah.
You know,
And they also
um,
have a king, like the Djinn. Gwyn
mhm.
Apnid, is that how you say it?
So yeah, Gwyn ap Nudd
Gwyn Apnid.
is a Welsh figure.
Okay.
So he's also kind of like a Welsh Celtic god, really. He's the
Okay.
guardian of the other world, right? King of the other world,
Mm-hmm.
Alwyn, the Welsh fairyland. He's also said to be the kind of the king under the mountain at Glastonbury Tor.
Okay.
Um, but he's a psychopomp as well. So he's a lord of the dead, a kind of a guide of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the Black Book of Carmarthen, he's a passage him describing himself having that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You see it
Does
as
he,
well. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry. Does he have a specific likeness? Or, I mean, does he have a specific appearance or,
A black face.
okay.
Just the front of his face is black, and the rest of
Okay.
him is white. You know,
I'm sorry, what were you
Gwyn
going to
Gwyn
say? I cut
means
you off.
Gwyn means fair as well, fair or light, right?
Okay.
Um, um, but in certain areas of Ireland, like we deemed to be kind of a local king of the fairies. So King Finvara
Mm-hmm.
is the king in like the Galway Mayo region. You know, um, which would kind of represent the kind of the kind of the kingdom structures of medieval Ireland. Where they had the kind of these. You'd have like the local king, right? There
Mm-hmm.
would be tiers of king, like Ardry is the high king, right? The king
Mm-hmm.
of all Ireland, but you'd have very much kind of like smaller kingdoms that go up to a provincial king and then the high king. So how people perceived these fairy hierarchies was in the same way, you know. And you have the same with kind of Jin lore, where you've
Mm-hmm.
got um, Jin tribes that are based on colors, like Red King, Green King, Blue King, and what have you, um, and their tribes.
Yeah. Interesting. And there's certain etiquette that you're supposed to use when you are dealing with fairies. Correct. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know that, and they end up
Yeah,
upsetting them, ticking them off.
yeah. I mean, the basic structure of fairy tales is there's a warning not to do the thing, and then the human being fails that instruction. There's usually a moral kind of code that's
Yeah,
broken, and they end up blind or punished in some way. There's always kind of a sin of avarice that they dislike, or sins of kind of you know lewd behavior are punished. But again, like these stories were vehicles for also um, enforcing and teaching social structures, you know,
yeah,
um, of behavior that would be frowned upon or cause chaos in local communities, those kind of things.
yeah,
Where if you upset that community in some way, it actually has real life implications for people.
yeah,
So, you know, they were also used for that, but certainly there's lots of stories of people um, being struck blind by fairies for breaking certain rules or codes.
hmm
Same with the gin.
yeah. I think I heard you tell a
Mm.
story about how a woman threw dirty water out
Yeah,
and hit because I guess the Jin can appear as dogs, black dogs.
They're associated with black dogs, yes.
Yeah, interesting.
Incidentally, same thing here. Fairies, black dogs, the black shuck, the phantom black dogs that are seen all over England. You know,
Hmm.
loads of lore around that.
Yeah. And cats as well, right?
Uh, well, probably there's so
Yeah.
much there,
Um,
but I'm more aware of the dogs than I
yeah,
am
okay.
of the cats.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
taboos about the left side as well. So if you hear something from the left, a disembodied voice, and it comes from the left side, you know, that would be interpreted as being a negative Djinn because it's coming from the left. You
okay.
know, so if you think about like people spill salt and they throw salt over their left shoulder to blind the devil,
Yeah.
that's the same. It's the same taboo. It's thinking about the left side is where kind of malignant spirits can come from.
Hmm. Yeah. And well, we've already kind of touched on this, but I found this kind of interesting. Well, very interesting. Um, so the Jinn and the fairies can both have relationships with humans.
Yes,
Um, can there be children produced of these unions?
they're said to be. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. There's quite a few Irish families that, in their family lore, they're said to be a fairy ancestor. You know, the same with silkies, like like seal people.
Yeah.
So, in fact, it's probably a more famous story about like the seal wife, right?
Hmm.
So these kind of ideas where um, the fisherman goes down to the beach to take out his boat, and there's a seal there, and he always sees the same seal around, and then on a moonlit night goes down to the beach,
Yeah.
and the seal is there, but the seal takes off its skin, and it's this, you know, beautiful woman, and they are fall happily in love, and have children. But he hides the skin away because he knows someday she's going to put back on her seal form and go back to the sea. Um, and some of the stories are actually, they've got some beautiful language in them, like where they talk about the seal wife, although she loves her children and loves her husband, she has this deep longing for the ocean, the deep longing for the freedom of the seal's form, you know. And accidentally, one of her children stumbles upon the seal skin hidden in the rafters of their cottage,
Hmm.
and the seal, the wife, she can't help herself. She returns to the sea, So there's those kind of tragedy in this Irish stories. Everything's always sad, right? They're like it's like, have you ever even heard of a happy ending? It's like, no, not in Ireland. We don't do that shit. It's always miserable. Someone's got to die. No love affairs ever end up. They don't work out. It's always miserable. So anyway, yeah, the seal wife returns to the sea. But there'd be families who would talk about that's our ancestry. You
Hmm.
know that our
Yeah.
ancestor was, a seal woman,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Um,
Do you
and
think
then
that
that,
this is literal or metaphorical? I mean, I feel like it could be literal. I think this world's so
yeah,
interesting.
it's a good question. Like if you asked me a couple of years ago, I'd be like, oh, it's metaphorical, and now I'm not so sure. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like you described it, the world just gets stranger and stranger.
Yeah.
So it it's it's possible,
Yeah.
or again, it could be a folkloric description of
Yeah.
something that we don't have the ability to rationalize or have a logical explanation for.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
I'll tell you, I talked to a psychic just this past
Mm.
summer who was a guest. We were just talking, and she blurts out to me while we're just having conversation that I have fairy DNA. It's like, wasn't really sure how to take. I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I found that
Mm.
very interesting.
Mm.
Who knows? Yeah, this world's wonderful and strange, and I love it.
So there's witch covens and who have excuse me, who have as one of their belief systems that their members have um, fairy ancestry.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, like
Uh, yeah, so speaking of, so we've talked about our ancestors, and I do think our ancestors lived closely with these beings. the veil was much thinner, and they knew that. And I really love the first story you mentioned in your book. I'm trying to remember the Book of Invasions by John Moriarty, about the
Yeah,
two different
yeah,
ways of being.
mm, yeah.
Uh,
So that's
yeah.
actually that's John Moriarty quoting the Book of Invasions,
Okay.
which is
Okay.
it's an old Irish manuscript, and he's quoting that in a book called his own book, Invoking Ireland. All right. He's an extraordinary man. He's passed on now, I think, some 10 years, but he, yeah, I think he's the closest thing to kind of mythopoetic in human form. Like he would merge Greek, Hindu, Native American, and Irish folkloric characters to tell a story. It's just incredible stuff.
Oh
But
man, we need more of him around.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But he spoke. Um, he spoke about kind of the Book of Invasions and how it talks about the kind of the second battle of Moytora, which is between the two of the Danann, the kind of the group you mentioned earlier, and the Fomorians, who are these kind of sea demons, right? Who come down from Tory Island in the northwest of Ireland to attack the Fomorians. And again, there's actually weirdly in the story there's intermarriage between the two of them, right? So it's kind of
Hmm.
like it's too simplistic to say Tuatha Danann good, Fomorians bad. It's not that simple. Like they
Hmm.
definitely represent the forces of chaos and kind of like uh, all the kind of dangers that kind of contains. But John Moriarty describes how the Fomorians shaped the earth to suit them, while the Tua shaped themselves to suit the earth, and that our way is now entirely Fomorian. You know, I've seen him. I've seen him lecture before, where he used the same analogy to talk about um, the seal um, at some stage in kind of in deep antiquity,
Hmm.
prehistory. The the seal kind of mounted the beach, and one decided to, you know, stumble onto the land and eventually become a dog, while its sister or its sibling returned to the sea.
Hmm.
And again, that the contrast he made was that the seal was perfectly shaped for the sea. This wonderful unencumbered form that is, you know, aerodynamic, whatever the equivalent of aerodynamic is
Yeah.
underwater.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, but perfectly shaped and formed to its environment.
Hmm.
While the dog has kind of four limbs and has to kind of run upon the land, and it just kind of illustrated that kind of separation. You know,
Yeah.
um,
And it definitely
yeah,
resonates with
yeah,
looking at the world today, how,
mm,
you know, far we've kind of strayed from the natural world,
mm,
which think we need to get back to that. I think a lot of people are feeling that. And it's very interesting regarding that story. I heard a young Native American woman talking about practically an identical story in their culture
mm,
of how there was, I guess, when kind of industrialization started happening, it was like, all right, well, if you guys are going to go this way, they were in touch with these beings. And the
mm,
beings said, hey, you have free will, but we're staying with nature. And some of them decided to go the industrial route and some decided to stay. And then the veil kind of came down. So,
right,
um,
yeah,
I found that a very interesting
mm,
story.
mm,
Yeah. Um, so let's move on to similarities. We've already kind of talked
mm,
about them, and we can probably just run through this pretty quickly. Um, so we've established they can grant wishes, the
mhm,
fairies and the Djinn.
yeah,
Um, they can both have relationship with humans.
mhm,
We already talked about the Djinn Queen. Um, they can apparently have hybridized children together. Um, yeah. What else? What did I write here? Oh yeah, Daimons. I kind of wanted to touch on the Daemon thing because that was pretty interesting that you talked about in your book regarding creativity.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the Daimons.
So it's a Greek word.
Hmm.
Uh, it's the idea of a spirit that accompanies one through your life, um, and that can either be kind of a force for good or bad in your life. But is this idea that the kind of the driving force or a motivation for a thing um, is 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 one's daemon. So Jung spoke about being in the grip of the daemon, that he actually felt his compulsion to do certain work was at the behest of his daemon, and actually, really, when he thought about it throughout, I guess towards the end of his life, he said, it was really difficult.
Yeah,
I couldn't really just do what I wanted and kind of spend my time doing what how I wanted to. I had to kind of, I was compelled to write, compelled to do this work. And throughout history, you've got all these famous figures talking about this. Like Napoleon said to
hmm,
had I think he called it his star, that he would kind of get insight from.
yeah,
Well, kind of what actions to take. Many
yeah.
people have spoken about this. Great minds in history have spoken about this.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of when I was reading this in your book about a previous book I read about like mania, bipolar. It's
Mm,
called Touch with Fire by K. Redfield Jameson. And it kind of obviously those are extreme cases, but just how
mm,
people are just driven, they'll stay up for days just trying
mm,
to create a certain project. And
mm.
it definitely sounds like a Damon influence there, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like certainly experiences with the Dark Man are very
Yeah.
similar. We get these like driven to do a certain thing. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah,
um,
you know a lot about
talking
that.
about it. Yeah, yeah,
Do you want to move on to talk about him? Because he's tied into all this, and I
yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
want to get into that.
Hmm.
So yeah, the Dark Man, who can also be called the Dark Trickster.
Hmm.
He's been an influence in your life. Um, very, very interesting. He can be terrifying. He can be inspiring.
Hmm.
Um, he can raise consciousness in someone. So what is the Dark Man?
I should be able to answer this. I've written a book about it. Um,
You probably just have
the-
so much. Where do I begin?
um, it, it is this. It seems to be this kind of primal archetypical force that has been um, represented by various names and figures throughout the entirety of human history. Um, many names.
Am I naming
Some
some?
you
Throwing
yeah.
some out there?
Oh yeah, I mean you like in Gaelic in Irish, like on Far Darka, the Dark Man, or on Far Dove, the Black Man, Black John, Robin Goodfellow, Robin Artisan, um, like the Master, all the Man in Black, would be a phrase, and he's associated with the kind of folkloric devil. It's not the Christian devil. It's an important distinction to make. Although sometimes, you find Christian um, labels, Christian names. Like Andro Man, who was a Scottish witch, referred to this figure as Christ on Day. You know, um, so there seems to be an ancient, like primordial wild spirit that has
Hmm.
been the shadowing humanity, but engages with some. And that engagement seems to be a call to creativity or a call to witchcraft.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's the reason I've called the book "The Song of the Dark Man" to
Yeah, I
kind
was going to
of,
ask you that. What
you
made
know,
you come up with that title?
well, these stories that I'm talking about in the book were performed. They were almost sung. And I wanted to kind of encapsulate that kind of creative element to this experience, and that creative expression. Like
Hmm.
a lot of these sagas of old were poems that were, again, they were performed, and a lot of the stories that I'm talking about would have been performed.
Mhm.
So that's why the song is there. Um,
I love it.
to to lean
Yeah.
into that. Yeah. Um, but the figure is frightening. It's one if it comes into your life. It's going to be something that's really push people to the edge of what they believe. If you're coming at it from any kind of Abrahamic background, you know, you're going to envisage it's the devil.
Mhm.
I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's older than Christianity and Abrahamic faiths, to be honest.
Mhm.
Um, but it is something that will challenge you, a test of metal. That might be your fears, whether or not to go forward, make you face your shadow, you know. And that's not me dismissing that there are diabolical things out there. I'm absolutely sure there are. Um, but there seems to be a distinct pattern that I was able to kind of ascertain from the corpus of stories and Scottish witch trial accounts and some English witch trial accounts that I went through, which is a black appearance or appellation. So the name would defer this darkness,
Mhm.
this trickster nature or shape shifting.
Mhm.
The um, composite form, so sometimes appearing as part animal, part human, um, and a sexual interest in human beings,
Mhm.
and also the interceptor, right? So these experiences often happen when it's some sort of liminal place. So we talk about the crossroads, right? The
Mhm.
intersection. It's neither east nor west. It's somewhere in between. It's that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so many of these stories happen when someone's walking home at night, or they take the wrong road. In the stories. But in the witch trial accounts, Isabel Gowdy, who I talk about in the book, is walking at night between her home and kind of the neighboring village when she meets the devil on the
Mhm.
road. So we find that there's a pattern there. So we don't have one true name or one true form, but you find a pattern where you can recognize the behavior that kind of zero us in onto what I call the dark man.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Is he related to Gwyn Apnude? Is
Yes,
he so Gwyn Apnude would be one of his forms, one of his.
I would say
Okay.
it's and
So
it's very hard to say kind of what that is, right? So
mhm.
like it's like and I kind of speak to like Hindu philosophy a little bit in the book because I think
Mhm.
it has a bit more space for being able to go, yes, it's X, yes, it's Y, but it can also be XY, and that's
Yeah.
okay, right? So whereas Western minds, we tend to deconstruct things into their composite parts, like that dial can be in a clock, but it's not a clock, you know,
Mhm.
but it's still in the clock. We still we we can't sit comfortably with that now. Maybe in
Mhm.
the past we could, but yeah, I would say Gwyn Apnud is an avatar of the Dark Man. He's
Yeah.
got that psychopompic nature,
Mhm.
his black face,
Yeah.
and like the darkness contains the light, contains the kind of potential for light, and we see that in
Yeah.
his name, black face, but his name means bright, fair,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, and he's the Lord of the Dead, and he's a king of the fairies, and lives under the mountain, in Glastonbury Tor. It's like all of those are like yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, you know.
I thought it
Uh,
was interesting some of the stories in the book. Some of the people get taken to a castle. He seems to live in a castle. They all, not all, but some of them report being taken to a castle and there's a party going on. So I found that very interesting. Really cool stories.
You'll
And
notice in some of those stories that there is the the company in in um, the castle are made up of fairies and also dead people that
mm,
the protagonist knew.
Yes.
And this is a very strange thing that we see amongst the fairies as the dead,
Hmm.
right? So there's this kind of blurring of things. So like the Lord of the Dead and the King of the Fairies, we would think, but they're separate things. The folklore, the lines are very blurred.
Yeah. That's-
Incidentally, people report that in alien abductions. They've met dead relatives
Yes.
in alien abductions. So
Yeah, there's some
yeah,
bleed through there for sure. A
mm,
lot of similarities.
yeah.
Um, well, I mean, like what does an encounter with the Dark Man do to people? Can you give us like maybe an example, like a story example or
Um, it's going to change you.
yeah.
um, uh, well, I think from a fundamental basic level that if you have a vivid encounter with the dark man, be that in dream, be it in vision, be it in a more tangible way, um, your understanding of reality is going to change, right?
Hmm.
So you can be as interested or as learned in kind of esoteric, paranormal, occult material, as you wish,
Hmm.
but there's often that kind of thing of like, did something happen there? Did I experience that? And we can often conflate things,
Yeah.
things that really, if we examine them, you can convince yourself either way, no, nothing happened, or no, something did happen. My experience with the Dark Man is like there's no negotiating. This is an utter experience that brought you face to face with the other. There's no, did that happen or am I imagining that? It's
Yeah.
very full on, utterly changing experience, change your understanding of the world entirely
Hmm.
and its nature.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, by the way, magic is real and spirits exist. That's it's done. Like
Yeah. Paradigm shifting.
100%, and
Yeah.
that can crumble people.
Mm.
That can be a very very difficult thing to really kind of sit with and get by.
Hmm.
To
Yeah.
let that settle. That can really really rock people.
Yeah.
Because it's like the foundation of your belief system can all of a sudden is missing a pillar.
Hmm.
Like that can send people over the edge.
Yeah.
Um,
It looks like you have somebody dark standing behind you. I just noticed it. I don't know if my eyes got really big. Literally, is that your chair or a coat or something?
what yeah, it might be a code. I think. Yeah, yeah,
I swear to God, it looks like someone's. And people have told you they see a dark figure
yeah,
behind you, correct? So
yeah.
he
They've
kind
seen it.
of,
Yeah,
would you say he watches over you? There's some people he watches over, right? And other people.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, people have seen it by me.
Okay. Well, it looks like he's behind you right now, I have to tell you. I was like, oh, I heard it was good to meet. Well, it's interesting. I'm just going to throw this out here. Aaron Rodgers, I'm just going to real quick. He went to Peru and did ayahuasca. And ever since, he's been talking about seeing this dark hat man. So I'm just going to read this real quick, see what you think about this. Let me see. I won't take up too much time. Let me find his account. Where is it? Hang on. Okay. So he says, Rodgers continues to be saying he fears staying alone in the locker room as the lights usually flicker and go off one by one. He says, quote, it was behind me, not even breathing hard. I heard its feet hitting the ground in a constant rhythm. I ran to my car, opened the door, slammed it behind me, and locked it as fast as I could. And then he also goes on to describe what he's seeing. Quote, he will sometimes appear in the distance, usually veiled by darkness, holding the corpse of a dead rabbit and sometimes a blade.
Mm,
So that's it. But yeah, since he did ayahuasca, he's been seeing this figure, and it just reminded me of one of the ways the
mm,
dark men can appear to people.
mm.
Yeah,
A dead rabbit and a blade. That's interesting.
with a hat on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's definitely having some sort of spirit contact.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing for an individual like that is for them to go, well, what does a rabbit mean to you? Or
Hmm.
what does that kind of like that knife mean to you?
Yeah.
Um, because, like I said, like the dark man has no true form. right?
Hmm.
He'll present to people. Um, but
He
spirits
presents to
present
people as in their within their belief system, right, or their way of viewing the world.
within their kind of magical symbol framework, or their spiritual meaning framework,
Hmm.
symbolic meaning framework, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in a Catholic country.
Hmm.
My Whether I like it or not, my symbol set is predominantly Catholic, right?
Hmm.
And the experiences I had with the Dark Man had that tinge to them, and kind of
Hmm.
Lord of the Rings as well. So but like if you think about kind of when I talk about the composite being, right? So you might have something that appears to have the legs of a deer, or or antlers, or goat's horns, or all those kind of things, right?
Hmm.
And this part human as well. So
Hmm.
what does that mean,
Hmm.
right? What is the message encoded in that manifestation? Well, what are the qualities of those animals? What do they represent to those people at the time? The deer has always been seen as a messenger of the other world, right? So that
Hmm.
can walk between worlds. You know, the the composite being that's showing kind of like part human, part animal is showing an integration with the natural world, right? It's
Hmm.
communicating the human is part of the natural world. It is um, the same as the animals in terms of its place in the natural world. Whereas if you look at it from a Christian perspective, you have a hierarchy that God gave the animals and plants to man to use as he saw fit.
Hmm.
Where if this presentation is different, it's not to say there isn't a hierarchy and a food chain and all that kind of stuff, but it's saying you're still part of nature, right?
Yeah.
Um, but equally, it's telling the truth about nature. So it's sometimes nature is tooth and claw, and animal feeding on animal. It's not shying away from that aspect of nature, And when we look at there's like quite lewd stories within the witch trials of sex between the witches and the dark man,
Yeah.
sometimes in non-human form.
Hmm.
Again, it's talking about, or I believe it is anyway. It's that is almost like a a ritual to a ritual kind of demonstrating the fecundity of nature, right? The urge to create, the urge for sexual union that
Hmm.
brings life into the world, or just for feeling alive, the
Hmm.
celebration of being incarnated in corporeal form. So like, and if you think about that, and you think about that as opposed to, say, some of the more restrictive religious beliefs, particularly with taboos around human sexuality,
Hmm.
right? It's polar opposites, but you know, it's also a lot more reflective of the natural world. You know, um, and I talk about that in the book in a kind of a metaphorical way about how the description of caves and the understanding of caves changed. When we talk about um, how caves were the first temples, um, and some kind of where the kind of the glens and caves were often kind of described as like the kind of the vulva of the goddess. And there's
Hmm.
two mountains in Ireland called the Paps of Anu, which are literally the breasts of Anu, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
they look like a pair of breasts just
Hmm.
outside Killarney and Kerry. So that's an embodiment of the goddess in the landscape, right?
Hmm.
So then you have um, the caves that would be seen as like this is the vulva, this is the place of birth, you know,
You froze.
from. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you froze. Oh
Uh,
no. Okay, now you're back. You're back.
Back? Yep.
Yeah.
Um, so I was talking about kind of the caves that were seen as um, this kind of liminal space of like the birth canal of the goddess, right?
Hmm.
Or and how the perception of that changed to being no, now from a Christian perspective, that's the hell mouth, that's the
Yeah.
entrance into the hell world, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's quite reflective when we look at how human sexuality changed, completely
Hmm.
within Abrahamic faiths. Um, that's a representation of that, you know.
Yeah.
When you look at Catholicism, you've got kind of a Virgin Mother and a celibate son. You know,
Hmm.
that's not reflective of what happens in the natural world. But
Yeah.
that's how the kind of the gods were perceived, whereas this is totally different.
Yeah.
And within that area, and that the gods and goddesses come, they consummate their passion.
Hmm.
You know, so it's a
Yeah.
different
Oh,
perspective.
yeah, absolutely. And there was a really lovely, there's some scary story. I'm not trying to like glorify him or anything. He can be very scary
Yeah.
and silly. Spring Hill Jack.
Hmm.
People know the story of Spring Hill Jack.
Hmm.
Um, but then like there are also some lovely stories too, which is like you said, he's formless. It's um Shelley H. Porter's, I won't say
Hmm.
too much about her story because but I really think people should read this book. But she had kind of a lovely interaction with him as like an angel of a dark angel of death when she was
Hmm.
sick. And
Yeah.
I believe
Samiel
he took her
again.
to a cave like that in a kind of a
Yeah.
dreamlike state. And she,
Yeah. A dark womb. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and this is where that kind of symbolism, you like just what I spoke about 2 minutes ago
yeah,
about the idea of like the birth canal of the earth, right? So
yeah,
that kind of opening, indicates a womb within,
yeah,
and this is where witches have gone in vision,
yeah,
to this
yeah,
dark womb, these healings water. And that's one of the things that he is. He is the guardian of this cold furnace of creation, you
yeah.
know,
Did
the
you have an
birth waters of the
experience?
dark goddess.
Did you have an experience in this environment? I
Yes.
think. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not something that I've spoken about publicly, but
Okay. Yeah, that's
because
fine.
it's
We don't have to.
a bit out there, like, but
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, that's
but
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I have been there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh goodness. Yeah. Oh goodness. Oh, well, one thing I wanted to ask you. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes, everybody. Uh, when you're in the presence of other people that have had encounters with him, can you feel it? Do you know just by looking at someone if you've never even met them that
Ooh,
they've had an encounter with him?
geez, I don't think I could say that. No.
Okay.
But when people talk to me about it, like I've got a close group of friends um who've been there, and certainly helped me and guided me through my experiences, and kind of we do recognize
Yeah.
the experience within each other for sure, and
Yeah.
like it is a challenging experience. Like there's, you know, this isn't for everybody at all,
Yeah.
and like there's attrition with this, like with dealing with big magical forces,
Hmm.
sometimes has an attritional quality on the human body,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
so like just from what I've seen,
Yeah.
it's not always easy, and
Yeah.
you do end up facing your shadow, you know,
Hmm.
you're going to end up facing the bits of yourself that are, you know, not your best,
He forces us
as
to grow
yeah,
in a lot of
100%.
cases. Yeah.
Yeah,
What is it?
100%.
Collapse or how did you put it? He forces us to collapse or persevere, I believe is what you said in the
I know,
book.
I bet it was something very clever. I can't remember what it
Yeah.
was though.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and he does have a queen, apparently, yeah.
Well, there's a number of things with this, and this is where the fairy overlap is quite strong. Um, but Androman, the Scottish witch I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
so there's a little quote from one of his trials, and it's in the book where he talks about he's accused of begatting several barns with this devilish sprite, right? In kind of old archaic Scottish, but essentially what he's accused of is having several children with this devilish sprite, the Queen of Elfheim, this the fairy queen. Um, and at the same time, he's having experiences with the dark man with the name Christ on Day. Um, but there's a number of different stories where the dark man is presented with the queen of the fairies. It's what happened in my town, 17th century. And the account is a young woman who contracted malaria, started seeing spirits. The spirits guided her to a field outside the town where there was a crock of gold for her to find. And she gets there and she sees these two beings walking towards each other on the other side of a hedge. One is this man all dressed in black, and the other is this striking, beautiful woman in a green dress. And she asks the spirit, "Who are they?" And he says, "That's the queen of the fairy. And if you bow to her, she'll give you an income." Um, but she's with this black man. They then walk forward and they hold hands. This man in black. I don't mean like an African person. I mean like a person just dressed jet black,
Yeah.
or sometimes like black as a Caucasian, but black is how it was described in Britain and Ireland.
Hmm.
Sure, it's different in other parts of the world, but
Yeah, and with a
well,
top
I
hat a
know
lot of
it's
times.
different, and yeah, I know it's different in other parts of the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So yeah, he has appeared with the Queen of the Fairies, and
Yeah.
like that seems to be again. It's like, well, what is this? You know,
Yeah.
we've got Lord of the Dead, we've got um, the folklorish devil,
Hmm.
Lord of the Sabbath, and seems to have some sort of relationship with the Queen of the Fairies, and it
Just,
maybe is the King of the Fairies. So all these things are intertwined.
yeah.
So
Um, well, I can say for the longest time when I was in like elementary school, I was about 8 years old. I was doing chores at my parents' house, taking the towels in, and we had a bathroom that attached to a guest room, and the door was open. Nobody was in there. And I have a tendency to glance into rooms when I walk by. And as I was walking by, I glanced in and I saw, plain as day, just as solid as anybody, at the far end of the room, looking out the window. He had his arm at a his right arm at a 90-degree angle, left arm down, and he was glancing out the window. And it looked to be a guy in his early 30s, short, dark hair, Caucasian. I only saw him
mm,
from the side, but he was wearing a black top hat, long black coat, black pants, black shoes. And of course, I
mm,
saw this, walked by, stopped, walked back, and of course, he was gone. I was like 8 years
yeah.
old and just kind of stood there like, did I really just see that? But that's always stuck with me. And up
Mm,
until I ran across your work, I just told everyone I
mm,
saw a Victorian gentleman ghost
mm,
um, on the northeast of America where there used to be only trees. So I don't know.
mm.
It's very interesting though, and
Yeah,
it
no,
makes me
it's
think.
interesting, and like again, if you think about when we talk about kind of the symbolism of these things, so like the like when I talk about the Dark Rider in the book, this kind of like interceptor of the night journey, right? So
Yeah.
you have an Irish peasant, making their way across the fields, after dark, coming going home, like and like proper rural dark where there's no
Hmm.
natural light, right? Just like pinholes of stars.
Yeah.
But if it's a dark night, then it's pitch black. Again,
Yeah.
moderns, we don't experience that much anymore, right?
Yeah.
Um, but this dark rider would come, and they tended to be dressed very well, like a gentleman, right?
Hmm.
So, which is why the fairies are often called the gentry. So they were described as such. So looking like a lord and lady of the manor.
Hmm.
So somewhere perhaps in your kind of symbolic language for what demonstrated some kind of like um, royalness or kind of nobility or
Yeah.
wealth or whatever it might be,
Hmm.
like that's how kind of it manifested to you and it was interpreted. It's very interesting that he kind of had those
Yeah.
kind of
Very interesting.
connotations. Yeah,
Thank you for that. Yeah, I felt like I have you here. I just had to mention
yeah.
it because
No,
it's,
thank you for sharing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So wrapping up, we're getting down. Thank you so much for your time. I just have just a couple more questions. I kind of want to talk about you now. Just kind of pick your brain a little bit. You have said something I really loved. You said we must rewild our souls.
Hmm.
I feel like we've touched on that a little bit. Would you mind elaborating on that? Because I think that's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
important, especially right now.
So I think the two bits we touched on a bit was around the kind of the quote around the Fomorians,
Hmm.
shaping ourselves to the world rather than shaping the world to us. And that idea of embodiment in the landscape and um, what I describe in the book of how we see the land different from that shift from seeing the metaphor of the cave as the threshold of creation
Yeah.
to the hellmouth is the result of that is has been a kind of an absolute decimation on how we see the living world, how we see the animals around, how we see the landscape. We don't see it as a living thing. We don't see it as a sacred thing. We don't see it as the mother of creation, and our
Yeah.
responsibility to it.
Hmm.
You know, we see it as a kind of a resource to endlessly exploit. You know, in all forms. Um, so with that rewilding, um, I mean how you see the land, how you talk to the land, how you be in the land, all those types of things, and finding a way to do that with yourselves. And like we spoke at the top of the show about the Irish language coming back, like
Yeah.
the hints are in that language, how you see the land.
Yes.
The like knock on first the hill of the monster.
Yeah.
You know, what's in the land, you're going to think about it differently because it's called that, you know.
Yeah.
And like animism or those type of practices, you know, finding something that helps you get there. It doesn't have to be a formal thing. It can just be how you are in nature, and realize you're part of it. You're not separate to it. You're not above it. You're part of it.
Yeah.
You know.
I love that. Thank you. Last question. Myself and many others are feeling like there's drastic changes coming for our world, some sort of
Mm,
natural, organic, unstoppable disclosure, or just uh, what, yeah, unstoppable disclosure, or just like the veil just falling. Do
mm.
you have any thoughts or intuitions about this?
I mean, I think we're definitely in a time of change. You
Hmm.
know, we're we're already thinking about things differently. Like we had some like really really weird like stories about UFOs and all that kind of stuff, and um, talk about disclosure, all the stuff with like the Tic Tacs, and
Yes.
you got
Well,
Atlas. What's it called?
three eye at three eye
Yeah,
Alice.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like the weird thing I find is people's reaction to it.
Hmm.
They're kind of like, oh, well,
Yeah.
you know. They're like, okay, I mean, this would be
Yeah.
like massive news, 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, but perhaps that's part of where we are now, that we're in a place in our mental spaces, in our psychic spaces, that we're like, okay, well, I guess it's time now.
Yeah.
Like it's something there. I do think we are in a time of change. I think there's going to be, uh, I think it's going to be a difficult birth.
Oh
I think
yeah.
we will. I think we will get to some positive place, but the system that we're in, the whole artifice, I think, is coming down. You
I
know,
agree.
you know,
Yeah.
um, and it doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Like it's that shift is going to be a difficult birth, but
Yeah. I feel like
you
it's
know,
going to be like a bull in a china shop on its way out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're seeing everything fall apart. You
Hmm.
know, and it is going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy, but I
Yeah.
think we will get to a better place as a result. You know,
Yeah. And
like
definitely getting back to nature, I think is
mm,
big. Yeah.
yeah, totally,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right.
So
Well,
I'm hopeful. I think I'm not deluding myself. I think it's going to be really really hard, but I am
yeah,
very hopeful for the future.
I am too. I am too. And I
Mm,
think it's no coincidence a lot of people are making connections now too that are like-minded and
mhm.
we'll get through it. we'll get through it, but it will be rough. I agree.
Mm.
Good things are coming ultimately. Very
Yeah,
interesting things, magical things. So,
yeah. But
yeah,
to your point, thinning of the veil, yes, I think you're absolutely right. More and more people are having these kind of experiences.
yeah.
You know, and um, that's why kind of like shows like this are important because people will find something and they'll find a kernel, of like, okay, that's why I'm feeling this way, or that's what I experienced. So it's like, shows like yours are very valuable to people.
And
Like,
yours. Thank you
yeah,
for your show too.
yeah. Thank you.
Um, yeah, I'm seeing it. It's exciting, terrifying and exciting times we're in. I'm
Mm.
glad to be alive. I am. I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. This has been fantastic.
Mm.
Before we close out, do you just want to remind people where they can find you?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. I don't really have any other social media presence. I'm too old to be doing all that. So
Well,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
it's an energy suck anyway, so it's good that you're
exactly.
not on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I have a Patreon, the Spirit Box Patreon, and you can find the Spirit Box podcast all over the place on YouTube as well. And what else? Yeah, my books is pretty any good kind of online bookstore. You can find it. It's also actually out in Spanish. I think it's today actually.
What?
It's released in
Today,
Spanish.
really?
I think so. Yeah. See the
Oh,
day
you
there
can see it.
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys,
Yeah.
this book
Mm,
it'll
mm,
blow your mind.
mm.
Yeah, awesome
No,
book.
thank you. I really appreciate your kind words.
And you're not old, by the way. I heard you say that. I'm gonna smack you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but definitely, if you like I said in the beginning, if you enjoy the content on this show, you will love Darrah's podcast. So check it out, and it's on YouTube, as I said. So Darragh Mason, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful, and I hope to have you back at some point.
Pleasure.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye, everyone.